And 3, 2, 1.
Should we start this with like, hello YouTube?
Yeah.
Hello YouTube! This is Kiwi Blaster 516, making another video with Leeroythecreeper, and here with me today is...
I'm Damacy boy, guys.
Hello.
And welcome to the first episode of The DM's Turn.
Yay!
This is our video where we discuss all things D&D and other role-playing games that are related to our current campaigns.
Because we are ultra nerds, and some of us geeks.
Better believe it. Now, normally this will not be a two-person video thing unless we just want it to be.
Yeah.
Since this is the first episode and I am series creator, I decided I would step in and go accompany Adam as he discusses our current campaign since he is DM.
Because I have no idea what this video is about yet. So, yes.
Alright, DM, as, why don't you kind of, this video is mainly all you, so why don't you kind of tell the listening audience what our current game is?
We are playing the second campaign of our zombie survival thing. You may have heard us talk about it in our Vietnam cast.
I believe in that one we spoke of the first season, correct?
Yes, this is the second campaign.
Alright, do you want to give us a quick rundown of the scenario?
Well, basically, I took regular D&D, really simplified the hell out of it, because there are certain things about D&D that just really they seem unnecessary to me. And I basically made it on par with something about as similar as to Arena. If you look at its stat system, it's like got overarching stats. And really the only way to determine how good someone is with a weapon is whether they have a proficiency in it. And if the proficiency is a yes or no, if they have it, they can pretty much hit anything. If they don't, then they have to roll to see if they hit.
Alright.
So that is the basic mechanics behind it. Story alterations, obviously this is not a medieval campaign. This takes place, actually, last campaign took place at the beginning of last year, because we're starting it at the end of summer break last year, 2011, and so I set it basically an alternate reality. So the campaign basically began 20 days from this event called the Thursday of Hell, which was when the entire world pretty much collapsed due to the zombies and whatnot. And yes, so that would be our universe. That campaign took place in mainly Burbank, California. If you don't know where that is, that's a little north of Hollywood, I think, past the mountains. And yeah, a little bit of the outskirts too. A couple differences from our end of world scenarios that because everything happens so fast, the world hasn't necessarily been destroyed. Like, people who've played Fallout know that when you run around the post-apocalyptia, as they call it, it's destroyed. There's craters, the roads have been crumbled to nothing, the buildings are shambles. That's not the case in this. In this universe, it actually looks fairly regular, but no one's around because they all died and became zombies. So yeah. The world still works, even though electricity works in some areas. Like Burbank still had power at the time. I mean, it was only 20 days afterwards; they wouldn't have shut it off at that point. So that's our basic setting for that campaign in our universe, and yeah. So we created several characters, and the biggest difference in this campaign from an average D&D game is I pretty much forced every player to have a party of survivors instead of just one character. And that made it surprisingly easier for people to roleplay their characters because, you know, it's kind of... When people have one character, they want to act the way they act. They don't want to have to act differently. So that just opened it up.
I would like to jump in here and compliment you on your party system, as I would agree that it really helped roleplay characters since I was a player in that campaign.
Yay!
Having multiple characters, it allowed me to kind of set up my own internal problems within my group.
Yeah.
And develop my characters more throughout that,
Yeah, that was the entire point of that. I actually had major conflict character in mind. Just that was, in fact, such a big conflict that she conflicted with everyone else.
I believe that helped develop a lot of my characters as well.
See, that's why I think the party system just works better. Because you can have a bunch of people running around like, oh, I'm an awesome badass who's going to go punch that thief in the face, or you could be the, okay, well, he's the badass who's going to go punch that thief in the face, and he over there, he's a wimp, and he's going to not punch the thief in the face.
I think, I'm gonna try. I think the most impressive achievement that your party system had brought to the game was actually allowing me to develop one character solely through another character.
Well, that's like
that was pure dumb luck on my part, mind you, but it was impressive.
It was good. It actually made a pretty good story, surprisingly. And to give you an idea of how quickly I threw this thing together, well, we had one more weekend before school started, and quite ironic actually. But we had one more weekend before school started, and I wanted to invite Juan and you over, and since Brandon, we live in the same house, so that doesn't matter. But we were gonna have the game, and I procrastinated on creating this thing, so I basically just threw it together like when we were sitting at the table. So no planning, but it came out surprisingly well for that. So I'm glad. Ethan actually helped design some of the maps.
Yep. And you'll never let me do it again.
Oh no, God no.
Thanks, Adam.
He made a huge building, a building the size of a neighborhood, and then he expected us to clear it.
You did, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah.
Okay, so our setting, like you said, the setting is a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first season, so how have things changed into our second season?
Still the apocalypse, but 2 years after the events of the first campaign. And some characters have carried over. I think Martinez's wife has carried over. George has carried over. Michelle has carried over. George needs more story. So yeah.
I'm not the DM in this game, so this is just kind of a quick chip in for me. I think George is showing improvement in this one.
Yes, definitely. You see, Bren was a little weirded out by the role-playing idea, so yeah. We had to work on that.
We have finished our first round, so as DM, how do you think the first round went for us?
Very well. I think it went very well. We have since, in the middle of the round actually, but we split it up into 2 sessions, fixed our old gun system. But when we began this game, the guns were ridiculously overpowered, so near the end of the first campaign we repaired that, and then when halfway into our next session, our first session of this campaign, we reworked it, and finally it seems to be at a point where we can all agree the guns are not overpowered.
And they're not underpowered.
Yeah. A little more complex than last time, but still better than it was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What are some? Let's go ahead and explain the story of the second season, so we can maybe talk a bit more in detail about it.
See, Ethan wants spoilers.
No, I don't want spoilers for the oncoming.
Yeah.
It's just I think we'll be able to reflect better for the viewer's sake if they actually know what's happened so far in second season.
Well, thus far, our characters have met up in a suburb in Michigan. That's a pretty long way from California, and that's due to the events of the first campaign. Basically, we've just now regrouped, or grouped into a bigger. We've amassed into a larger group instead of a bunch of segregated characters. That is the hardest part of running a campaign with people who have multiple characters, because if you split it up into parties, the parties generally start out in different areas, so you have to make sure they meet up before you can let them progress in the campaign, or else you're going to be running 2 campaigns. Which is not going to happen.
Aww. Well, who are the characters that are running in this one?
Well, in this one, we have In this one, we have Ethan's 3 characters, well, 4 characters if you include the carryover Maria from the first session, or the first campaign, which was actually Martinez's wife.
Yes.
And Martinez was one of his characters in the first campaign. Yep. So I thought it was pretty cool that that she was able to join us in this campaign. We've got, well, Ethan, you could probably explain your characters a little better than I can.
It's the DM's turn, so let's hear your thoughts on them. Let's see who you think they are.
Ethan's character. Well, we've basically got 2 movie stars, or well, TV show stars, not quite movie stars, not of that caliber, that were involved in a show called Galactic Wars, which is basically our universe's ripoff of Star Trek. And one of them thinks he's much more worth. Well, he's much more. He's got more worth to himself than he does actually have. So he goes around treating people kind of like trash. And then we've got the old guy who's trying to kind of keep him in line. And I think that other character is basically assuming that he's just here because he was hired or whatever. And then the other character is the fat, nerd, stereotypical fan of these characters. And I don't know what's wrong with him, but something is seriously wrong, because after 2 years of apocalypse, he still carries around his plastic ion knife and phaser.
Isn't it genius?
Sure. And actually, at the end of last session, he got to meet his idols from the Galactic Wars show, because they were, well, the people who worked on it.
Can we break right quick for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Recording again in 3, 2, okay. So, I think your description of my character sounds, general but accurate.
Yay.
Why don't you list some of the others?
Okay, so then we've got Brandon's 2 characters, George and Chris. George, as you heard, is a carryover from the first campaign. He's doing much better this campaign. He's getting a lot more involved in dialogue, which is something we wanted very badly, because he needed to learn how to role play, and that'd be Brandon. So, yeah, Chris is Brandon's scientist character, who I think when I gave him a title, because I don't think Brandon knew what this would be, but I think he was a electrical theorist. So he worked with circuitry and how they interact with mechanisms and other things. It's kind of hard to explain. Yeah, and basically he has a Gauss rifle that he built himself, which is pretty badass. And the only reason I really allowed that is because it's remotely possible, and in the real world, you can probably Wikipedia this. It's called a coil gun, and it uses magnets to propel a metal ball towards something. So that's pretty cool. And then we have my characters. I guess I should probably start off by saying Michelle is back in for this series, and acts a little bit colder than in the first season. She was really angry the first time around.
I think calmer would be the correct word.
Calmer, yeah. Better, a little bit more collected than for the first time around. And then there's Zach, who is creepy. Creepy and inspired by a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, Ethan doesn't know this neither. Well, now he does, but Brand doesn't know this either. Yeah, he's very creepy, and there's stuff that's going to go on that is not pleasant.
For the sake of the game, I'll pretend I don't.
Yes, that's the glory of role-playing.
So, what were some, like I said, we completed the first scenario, so what were some things that happened in it that really stood out to you?
Oh, it happened in this scenario?
Mm-hmm.
For the first time ever, one of our characters got infected by a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we left that scenario, we were getting him cured of the infection, because in our universe, the thing is curable. The disease is curable. That's a big difference from most zombie apocalypses. These things aren't curable, or they're treatable but not curable entirely. It's curable, and in fact, not a very strong disease, and that's one of the mysteries of this world: is how did it cause so much damage if it was so easily destroyed?
Do you think we'll ever get an answer to that, or no?
Probably later on.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
So, here is my. Well, first, are there any other events that stood out to you?
Yeah.
Like.
Well, then the first Nightcrawler attack actually stood out to me because they were much smarter this time around. It was interesting to see how you guys responded to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one Nightcrawler did the thing I intended for these things to be. We have regular zombies, YouTube. These things that they saunter through the streets. They're nothing really. Let's find another word. They're not really smart or cunning, but they can swarm you and kill you like a regular zombie. Then we have Nightcrawlers, which are I guess you could say, more evolved version of those that are from corpses that have rotted beyond what the regular zombie would be. So these guys are more skeletal, and some of them don't even have legs. They just crawl around using their arms. That is why they're called Nightcrawlers. And the regular zombies come out during the day. The Nightcrawlers obviously come out during the night. That forces the zombies inside because the zombies get destroyed by these Nightcrawlers. And basically, they were the things that would crawl in on top of your roof at night, and they would try and find like an opening or break one themselves and just like crawl along the ceiling into your house. Those things are really creepy. And it finally I got to try that out on these guys, and Fred was freaking out. It was awesome. Shoot it, but I don't know where it is. And because we use map tool, I can use invisible tokens to show these things. So yeah.
Are there any characters that have stood out to you so far?
Eugene, actually, which is the nerd character, has stood out. I mean, he stood out in the way that I understand nerds and fans, and then I also understand mental disorders, and that kid has a disorder. There's no way anyone in their right mind would believe that their plastic phaser pistol, at the age of 17, would believe that their phaser pistol works. Yeah, or their plastic ion knife. That was dramatic, and yet he has a redeeming quality in that he tries to be heroic like the actors he idolizes, or well, their characters. The actors he idolizes aren't exactly heroic.
All right. Well, obviously in the show they're heroic, but
yeah. Captain what?
Captain Roy and Captain Harrison.
What does he call himself?
Captain. It was Captain Eugene Awesome Astronoid.
You see, YouTube, agree with me. Something is wrong with him. Something is very wrong. I'd understand this from a kid, but a 17-year-old? No.
Have you seen any shifts in Eugene's personality as of yet?
Not... Well, he's a little less lost. And at first he didn't come off as heroic. At first he kind of just came off as the nerd who would sit in his basement munching on cookies until he died. I'm serious. He probably would have died of like a vitamin deficiency if we hadn't shown up eventually. I mean, no, that was his ration. He had 6 cookies on him, and I think he's running low. Sylvester came through a little bit. Despite being an ass for the most part, he did come through a tiny bit. Chris, he is the hardcore, logical person, and if you were to explain his if you were to explain his attitude, it would be his personality is nice, but does not tolerate ignorance. And at his level, that means he doesn't really tolerate anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. George is still a little light and kind of acts as I'd imagine Bran would.
Well, let me think here. What do you think inspired Eugene's bout of heroism?
I think it was definitely his TV show. His TV show and that people were in danger.
As Eugene's player,
Yeah.
I know the motive behind it.
Yes.
And I will say you are, for the most part, correct.
Yeah.
But there was a trigger to it. And personally speaking here, you are going to have one hell of a time.
I think I know what you're hinting at. We'll save that for later.
You can type a guess to me. All right, and back to regular show. So overall, you'd say you're happy with how the first session ended?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really know what else could have happened that would have worked. The challenge with this campaign is going to be creating more sessions, more maps, because if it's a survivalist campaign, the goal is to survive. That's the difference. The last campaign, I named it Resistance because all of our characters, for the most part, ended up joining the Resistance.
Yeah.
And so that's why I called it that. And in this campaign, we have the non-Resistance members or
you've got one, but
one kind of displaced Resistance member.
Yeah.
With a broken shotgun and a pistol that Eugene stole.
Yep. Yeah. So is there anything else you wanted to really comment on about the campaign? So as of yet, or...
Bennett will be making a reappearance.
I am so happy about that.
And Ethan will get to play him, but I'm gonna
my god.
But I'm gonna have to tell you what Bennett's going to do, though, sadly. Because he's gonna be instrumental in the campaign.
So let me clarify this for my personal understanding here.
Yes.
I will get control of Bennett's minor actions here and there, but you're setting point A and point B for me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that.
You got a race to drive, and I'm giving you the track.
I'm good with that. As long as I get to play Bennett again.
Yep.
I had so much fun with him last time.
Bennett is kind of like anti-Michelle'd, and he's gotten much more hard because of the world has just like hardened him and like kicked his ass so many times.
You can't be a Boy Scout forever.
No, as is evident by my drawing of him. Oh god! I finally drew all 14 characters from the last session. And because I'm not the best artist in the world, that took me a while. But
hopefully we'll get that up before too long, and people can use it as a summary of our first story.
Yes, that's why I don't want to. I want to, and yet I don't want to give up too much of what happened in the first session, because I want to want to make a comic book-esque style video series for it.
Yeah. So is that everything that we really had to say?
I think so.
All right. Go ahead and sign off here, Adam. I'll end out the show then.
All right. This is Kiwi Blaster 516, and remember, someone's got to eat that potato salad.
And I'm Damacy Boy, guys. I will see you later. This has been the first episode of the DM's turn.
Hopefully we didn't suck.
My turn is now over. Player, roll your dice.
Yay!